My name is Noden Whitecloud. I met my wife, Aylin, back in college when we were both 25. We fell hard for each other, tied the knot not long after graduating, and for the most part, life was good. We both got decent jobs and started building a life together. Aylin worked for her father's small business, while I went the corporate route and joined a large firm. A couple of years in, something unexpected happened. My boss left, and suddenly I was the only one who really knew how to keep the department running. That earned me a big raise, better bonuses, and solid benefits. By the time I turned 28, I was making nearly 3 times what Aylin did. That same year, we had our first daughter. 2 years later, our second was born. Since Aylin worked for her dad, her hours were flexible, and she had more room to manage home life when needed. But about 5 years ago, everything shifted. Aylin's father passed away unexpectedly. It hit the family hard, and left her and her mother unsure about what to do with the business. Her mother did not know the first thing about running a company, so Aylin stepped up. To everyone's surprise, including mine, she did more than just keep things afloat. Under her leadership, the business thrived. She turned it into something even stronger than when her father was running it. She earned a major raise and eventually started making more than I did. I was proud, truly proud. Taking over a business like that is no small thing. But our daughters started feeling the strain of us both being gone so much. That is when Aylin and I sat down and had a serious talk. One of us needed to be home. She said her company could not afford to lose her right then. I agreed and stepped away from my job to become a full-time father and husband. These days, I do it all, raising the girls, cooking, fixing stuff around the house, keeping the place clean, running errands. You name it, I do it. When Aylin gets home, I make sure she can unwind, relax, and feel appreciated. That was our deal, and I stuck to it. Everything was going smoothly, until about a year ago. That is when I started noticing changes in her. Small things at first. Little jabs like, "Do you even do anything all day?" Or, "Why do you not get a real job?" That stung. I had given up my career to raise our kids, take care of our home, and support her dreams. But she stopped seeing that. She also stopped being affectionate. The woman who once craved intimacy would suddenly have a headache, or be too tired, or just not interested. I tried to brush it off, told myself it must be the stress from work, the economy, the pandemic. I stayed patient, did my best to support her. Then, last weekend, we went to our oldest daughter's softball game. My parents live out of state, so I wanted to record some footage to share with them. I had forgotten my phone, so I asked Aylin if I could use hers. She had been glued to it all day anyway, and I figured it would be good for her to take a break. She handed it over and went off to grab a drink and a snack. I started filming, and that is when everything came crashing down. A notification popped up. Just a small message from some app. I should not have opened it, but I did. What I saw broke me. Aylin had been messaging a man from her office. A guy 8 years younger than me. They had been sending each other explicit texts, pictures, even videos. He was calling me names, things like spineless and pathetic. And Aylin was agreeing with him. I was stunned. She came back and I shut the app quickly, forced a smile, and kept recording. On the drive home and even back at the house, she tried to start a conversation. I just could not bring myself to speak. That night, we got into bed, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she tried to be intimate. I turned her down. I was not in the mood, for obvious reasons. She snapped. "If you are going to be all moody, then go sleep on the couch." So I got up. I have been sleeping in the guest room ever since. I felt completely lost. This woman, my wife, meant everything to me. Our daughters are my whole world. And now everything felt shattered. Update. Let me break it down. First, I saved all the messages, images, and videos. Every bit of it. Second, I do not own any part of the company. It is split evenly between Aylin and her mother. Third, I could not sleep in the same room with her anymore, so I stayed in the guest bedroom permanently. I made my decision. I am going to divorce her. This morning, I called a law firm in another town, far enough away to keep things quiet. They had an opening, so after dropping the girls off at school, I drove over. The attorney I met was sharp and honest. I showed him the evidence. He told me it was all very damning. He said the court would likely side with me heavily. Since I left my job to care for our daughters, and Aylin was the one cheating, it would make her look very bad. He said she might end up paying alimony, child support, and that I would likely keep the house. Even better, since I have not been working, he said it could help me get funds to go back to school or start a new career. He advised me not to get a job until after the divorce is finalized, to avoid reducing my settlement. Then he asked if I wanted full custody. I said I was okay with Aylin seeing the girls now and then, maybe a weekend or two each month, but I wanted primary custody. He said I had a strong case. She had been cheating in our home, putting our girls at risk by bringing a stranger around. That worked in my favor. So that is the plan: full custody, limited visitation, no men around my daughters. If she tries, I will pursue legal action. He told me to keep quiet until all the documents are ready. Act normal. No fighting, no arguments. Just keep up appearances until the papers are served, hopefully sometime next week. Then she will be legally ordered to leave the house. He also told me to get tested for sexually transmitted diseases and for paternity. That last one hit me hard, but I agreed. I got checked out, and thankfully, my results were clean. Then came the hardest part, the paternity test. As painful as it was to even consider, I needed to know. And I am relieved to say I am their biological father. Both of them. Final update for now. Aylin is no longer living in the house. My lawyer handled the process, and she was served the divorce papers at her workplace. From what I heard, it did not go well. I now have full temporary custody of our daughters. My oldest is struggling the most. She knows what is happening. One of her friends went through something similar, so she has seen the effects. She keeps crying, asking why mommy cannot come home. It breaks me. My youngest just misses her mom. She does not understand what is going on. I am working on getting them both into counseling, as my lawyer suggested. Some nights, I lie awake wondering if I should have just let Aylin keep doing what she was doing for the sake of the kids. But I could not. I could not live like that. At one point, I even thought about suggesting an open marriage, waiting it out until the girls were older. But that is not a life. I know my daughters would feel the tension, sense the lies. That is not the example I want to set. Right now, Aylin is living with her mother. A few days after everything started unraveling, my former mother-in-law, Wapan, reached out and asked to meet in person. I agreed. She did not push me for details, but with tears in her eyes, she begged me not to take her granddaughters away. I told her the truth: she had always been a loving grandmother. As long as she could keep her daughter's mess separate from her relationship with the girls, she would always be part of their lives. She thanked me quietly, and that was the end of that conversation. As for Aylin, my soon-to-be ex-wife, she has been calling and texting nonstop, wanting to talk about us, about the past, about everything. Under my lawyer's advice, I set up a monitored app strictly for communication about the children. That is all we are allowed to discuss. No small talk. No apologies. Just parenting logistics. Update. Thanksgiving. I wanted to give you all a quick update. I spent Thanksgiving with Aylin and Wapan. Not because I wanted to. I did it for the girls. My lawyer and I talked it over beforehand, and I made it absolutely clear that this was not a reunion. It was a one-time act for the sake of our daughters. Before the holiday, I met with Wapan privately. We had an honest talk about how to handle things with the girls once the divorce is finalized. She also opened up to me about Aylin's past, something I never expected to hear. Apparently, when Aylin was in high school, she fell for a rich kid her parents warned her about. She caught him cheating with another girl. Wapan said Aylin never really recovered from that. She dated a few guys in college, but none were serious. Then she met me, and Wapan felt like she had finally found the perfect son-in-law. She said she was ashamed of her daughter's actions and promised to keep her from stirring up trouble during the divorce. A few days before Thanksgiving, Wapan invited me over for dinner again, this time with the girls. I asked if Aylin would be there. She said yes. I told her I was not comfortable with that. She understood but asked if I could set aside my feelings just once more and play along for the holiday, for the girls' sake. I told her I would speak to my lawyer. The lawyer advised me to message Aylin through the parenting app, stating clearly that I would be attending dinner solely for the girls. That way, there would be no confusion. When we arrived, the air was thick with tension. Aylin ran to hug the girls. That was fine. But then she tried to hug and kiss me. I stepped back and greeted Wapan instead. Aylin acted like nothing had changed, talking to me as if we were still a couple. I gave her short answers and stayed busy helping in the kitchen. Before dinner, Wapan, deeply religious, wanted to say a prayer. I may not believe in any higher power, but I stood quietly and held my daughter's hand out of respect. When Aylin reached for mine, I gently pulled away. It may seem petty, but I could not bear to pretend. Not after everything. Dinner itself went smoothly on the surface. But Aylin kept acting like we were still together, asking about Christmas plans, vacations, even summer ideas. That was when I realized I had made a mistake agreeing to come. After eating, I cleaned up. I was ready to leave. But the girls asked if we could stay for a movie, something we always did together during the holidays. I could not say no. So we stayed. When Aylin tried to sit beside me and cuddle, I stood and moved to a chair. The whole evening, I noticed Wapan glaring at her daughter, clearly upset with how Aylin was behaving. When the movie ended, the girls had fallen asleep. I carried them out to the car. But when I went back inside to grab their coats, Aylin cornered me. She broke down, begging for forgiveness, pleading to fix our marriage and be a family again. Before I could even say a word, Wapan stepped in, physically pulling Aylin away by her hair. "Good night," she said to me coldly, her voice laced with disappointment. I told my lawyer everything the next day. He confirmed I had done nothing wrong. I was not leading her on. My messages had been clear. There was no going back. Aylin still calls and pleads to talk. I do not answer. I only reply to questions about our daughters. Update, therapy, and the girls. This week has been incredibly hard on my girls. They had 2 therapy sessions. The first went well. They seemed calmer. The therapist was kind and seemed to connect with them. But the second session, that one wrecked me. The therapist gently explained to them, using words suited to their age, that their mother had broken my trust. She had been unfaithful. I knew the day would come. I just did not think it would come so soon. When I picked them up, both girls clung to me, crying and saying how much they loved me. It broke my heart. This is not how I wanted them to find out. I asked the therapist why she told them. She said the girls already sensed something was wrong. They noticed how distant I was with their mother. Children are not blind. They feel what we do not say. And they were asking questions. The therapist believed honesty would help them heal. She handled it delicately and age-appropriately. But the damage was done. That night, my girls would not let go of me. I ordered takeout, put on their favorite movies, and we all slept in my room. After they finally fell asleep, I went to the bathroom and cried. Aylin has no idea how much she has hurt them. The therapist mentioned medication might help ease the transition, but I refused. I want my daughters to learn how to deal with their emotions, not suppress them. She respected that and said we could revisit the topic if needed. As for Christmas, I do not think it will be a problem, because now my daughters want nothing to do with their mother. I was stunned when my oldest looked at me and said, "I never want to see her again." Even my youngest nodded. I tried to explain that no matter what, Aylin was still their mother and loved them. But my oldest shook her head. No, she doesn't. If she did, she would not have done this. They cried in my arms until they fell asleep. Update, the other man's family. It might sound like a scene out of a bad drama, but it happened. My daughters are still going to therapy, and they are slowly starting to feel a little better. They no longer say they hate their mom, but they also made it clear they do not want to see her anytime soon. That is their choice. I respect it. I let Aylin know that the girls were aware of her affair. She tried to call them. They answered. They were polite, but firm. Now, as for the man she cheated with, I already knew he was a scumbag. But turns out he is worse than I imagined. Someone had asked me if Aylin might have been involved with anyone else, so I started going through her work files. I found a list of contacts, coworkers, and staff numbers. I dialed the number listed for that man. His wife answered. I had no idea he was married. I told her who I was and what had been going on. At first, she hung up on me, but later that evening, she called back. She wanted to meet in person. So we met. I brought all the proof. We ended up talking in my car. As soon as she sat down, she broke into sobs. How could he do this? She asked. I told her she had done nothing wrong. None of this was her fault. Then she shared something that made my blood run cold. She pulled off her wig. She had been battling cancer. After giving birth to their child, she had been diagnosed with a tumor. Over the past year and a half, she had undergone chemotherapy, 2 surgeries, and medication that wreaked havoc on her body. Her self-esteem had crumbled. They had not been intimate in nearly 2 years. She had just started to feel like herself again, had planned to surprise her husband, only to find out he was having an affair. The betrayal destroyed her. She cried over the future of her child growing up in a broken home. I did my best to comfort her. She tried to lean into me, tried to find solace in a moment of weakness, but I gently stopped her. I told her she deserved better, and that neither of us needed more heartache. She thanked me for my honesty. Before she left, she asked for the evidence. I gave her everything, and then she went home. Since everything that happened with Aylin, I have stayed in touch with Kaya, the wife of the man Aylin cheated with. We have kept it casual, just texting back and forth as we try to move forward through this chaos. It was actually some folks online who suggested I reach out to her in the first place, and I am glad I did. She is a good person, going through something just as painful as I am. Christmas. Now let me tell you about Christmas. It turned out better than I ever expected, all things considered. I got up early, before sunrise, to set out the gifts from Santa for my daughters. I figured this might be the last year my oldest still believes, and I wanted it to feel magical. Within 15 minutes of waking, the girls were bouncing around, shouting, "Santa came." I dragged myself out of bed, smiling despite everything, and watched them tear into their presents. Their joy was contagious. Afterward, we curled up on the couch to watch a movie. They both ended up falling asleep beside me. I got up quietly and made coffee. Not long after, my youngest woke up and said she was hungry, so I let her help make breakfast. She threw on an apron and smiled the whole time. My oldest joined us soon after, and the three of us sat down to eat together. It felt peaceful. Later in the day, I helped them get ready to visit their mother and grandmother. Normally, I am firm with the schedule, but this year I eased up. The girls were dressed and ready, but they did not want to go. I told them, gently, that their mother still loves them. I reminded them that our therapist had advised keeping the bond between them and their mother open. Otherwise, it could backfire in court, and worse, emotionally harm them in the long run. I reminded them that Grandma Wapan was not responsible for their mom's choices. They agreed to go. I drove them over to Wapan's house and called to let her know we were there. She came out and gathered their overnight things. They were only staying one night, and my lawyer confirmed that was fine, as long as it did not become routine. Before I could leave, Aylin came outside. She looked confused, probably something her mom had said. Wapan told her firmly. No. Aylin stood there, eyes red, and waved to me as I drove off. Christmas night. I had left dinner warming in the oven for Kaya, who showed up later that evening. She came without her toddler. I asked where they were, and she explained her in-laws had wanted to spend Christmas with the baby, and her husband had a legal arrangement to see the child briefly. She wore a beautiful dress, soft leggings, fluffy boots, and a stylish wig. She looked happy. For the first time since I had met her. We had dinner, laughed a little, and swapped stories about our pasts, funny ones, painful ones. Afterward, we sat on the couch and watched a movie. I opened a bottle of wine. I am not much of a drinker, but there is one I like to have every Christmas. I asked if she would like some. She said yes. One glass led to another, and before we knew it, the wine was loosening our thoughts and emotions. We started talking about what we had missed in our relationships, not just affection, but deeper needs, physical and emotional. She looked at me and said something like, "Your wife was lucky, and she ruined it." I replied that her husband was no better. We both smiled, bittersweet. She seemed nervous about her appearance, even with the wig. I told her she could take it off if she wanted. I said she looked amazing either way. She did. I meant it. She smiled softly, took the wig off, and leaned into me. At first, we just talked and laughed. But slowly, the mood changed. It turned into something deeper, familiar, intimate. We started cuddling. Then it happened. I instinctively touched her chest in the way I used to with Aylin. She told me it felt good. I froze and apologized, but she said, "It is okay. Actually, can you keep going?" And I did. We kissed. Things got heated. She touched me, and I did not stop her. One thing led to another. We ended up in the living room, the kitchen, the office. Eventually, we made it to my bed. That part was slower, more emotional. We kissed more. There were tears from both of us afterward, but not out of regret, more out of release. Pain. Healing. The next morning, we made breakfast together and even showered. Before leaving, she asked if what we shared meant something. I told her yes. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and promised to text me later. Later that day, I picked up my girls. They told me they had a decent time. Aylin had been on her best behavior, and that made things easier. I had dinner with them, and we spent a quiet night at home. Update. Weeks later. Life has been intense. That night with Kaya was a one-time thing, at least for now. We still talk almost every day. We even met once more, and both agreed that while we do not regret it, we cannot let it happen again unless it is for the right reasons. As for Aylin, she finally hired a lawyer. My own attorney has been working on meetings and court prep. Aylin still sends messages, trying to win me back. I do not read them. Now about that other man, Kaya's husband. He was arrested. He confronted Aylin at her office and assaulted her. People had to step in to pull him off. The police arrived and took him away. Aylin is pressing charges. Wapan told me what happened. She also said I could go visit Aylin if I wanted to. Apparently, the guy left her with a black eye and a busted lip. I have not visited. Neither have the girls. It is hard seeing Aylin like this. She looks like she has aged 10 years. She is pale, rail-thin, and losing her hair. I asked Wapan to help her out, and at first she refused, said it was her daughter's punishment. But I reminded her, Aylin is still the girl's mom. She needs to be there for them. And to do that, she has to heal too. Wapan agreed to step in. Final update, for now. The divorce process is moving along. Our first lawyer meeting went surprisingly smooth. My lawyer made the terms clear: full custody, limited visitation, and no reconciliation. Aylin's lawyer, for whatever reason, tried to push for us to get back together, for the sake of the children. My lawyer nearly laughed in his face. Eventually, Aylin agreed to everything, except one thing. She asked for every weekend with the girls. My lawyer negotiated her down to 2 weekends a month, alternating holidays. I agreed. She is still their mother. We are not friends. We are not partners. But I hope this humbles her and helps her prioritize what truly matters, our daughters. Wapan has been doing her best. Aylin is trying to get her life together. I hope she does. A few days ago, I got a handwritten note from Aylin. She asked if I would be willing to meet her one last time, in public. A few weeks before the divorce was set to finalize, Aylin reached out and asked if we could meet one last time to talk everything through. I agreed, reluctantly. We scheduled it for the following week in a public park, somewhere we used to take the girls when they were little. I made sure to record the whole meeting, just to protect myself in case anything went sideways. Technically, we were still married at that point. But with the divorce scheduled to be finalized during the first week of July, the end was already in sight. Update: the meeting and the breakdown. Hey everyone. Sorry for the delay in updating you. It has been a busy summer with 2 little girls at home. Let me share the most important things. First, after much consideration and consulting with her doctor and therapist, and even Aylin, I decided to allow my oldest daughter to start a very low-dose medication. It was not an easy choice, but we agreed it was necessary, at least temporarily. We will taper it off once things settle. My youngest is doing pretty well, all things considered. She still wishes we could all live together again, but she is smart enough to understand why that cannot happen. As for the man Aylin had the affair with, he has completely vanished. No one knows where he went. Kaya, the other betrayed spouse, and I still talk daily. She has been a strong support system, and we have helped each other get through the worst of it. Now, for the meeting with Aylin. Like I said, we met at the park. It was quiet. We sat on the same bench we used to rest on after pushing the girls on the swings. I kept things calm. She actually admitted that, right now, she is not in the right place emotionally or mentally to be a good mother. I failed, she said. I failed as a mom. I need to figure out how to be better. We mostly talked about the girls, what they needed, how to handle holidays, school, therapy. It was civil. But just as I was about to leave, she asked me something I never expected to hear. She wanted to know if we could stop the divorce, go to counseling, and try again. I looked her in the eyes and said, no, absolutely not. Then I reminded her of everything she had done, how she allowed that man to disrespect me, how he hurt not only me, but also his own wife and child, and how she knew all that and still chose him over us. I told her there was no trust left. No love. Just damage. I asked, do you really think you deserve another chance after all this? She admitted that she did not. I was worked up by then, my emotions boiling over. I started venting about how I gave up my career, stayed home to raise our daughters, did everything I could to make her happy, and how she repaid me with lies and betrayal. She cried, but I kept going until I had nothing left to say. Out of nowhere, I asked, what were you thinking when you started that affair? She hesitated. Then, suddenly, she said something that caught me completely off guard. I wanted to be the one at home. That stopped me cold. She explained that she never wanted to run her father's business. She had always dreamed of being a stay-at-home mom and wife. She wanted me to take over the business. She hated the stress, the long hours. She just wanted to cook, take care of our girls, and enjoy family life from home. She confessed that she never wanted the role she ended up in. But then why, I asked, did you push me to quit my job and take care of everything at home? She said, I was hoping you'd insist on running the business instead. I was stunned. How was I supposed to take over your dad's company? I did not have any background in that field. She nodded. I know. I was just too proud to admit what I really wanted. That broke something in me. All of this, I said, all of this, because of your pride? She nodded again. I told her straight. I would have supported you if you had just been honest. Then I asked the final question. What does any of that have to do with you cheating? She explained how, during the pandemic, she was burned out. She was working long days while I was home with the kids. She grew jealous, angry, resentful. That man from work, he noticed. He saw it and used it. He whispered in her ear that I was not man enough, that if I truly loved her, she would be the one staying home. She let that jealousy fester, and eventually, she gave into it. She said she tried to cut ties with him, but every time she felt lonely or overwhelmed, she turned back. It made her bitter toward me. It made her treat me like garbage. And in the end, it all boiled over. She said, I just want my family back. I want to go back to how things used to be. I stood up and walked away. I could not stay there another second. Another truth surfaces. There is one more thing I have not shared. Late last year, Aylin became pregnant with that man's child. She had an abortion and told no one. Her mother, Wappen, noticed something was off and assumed Aylin was acting out for attention. But now we know the truth. That was one more reason why she was so emotionally wrecked during all this.